I'm Tom. Welcome back to the Woodshop Nerdery. Today we continue the project build for my Wright Brothers 1899 Kite replica. In the first project build video, I manufactured all the wooden parts for the kite. In this video, I need to take care of the cloth parts. According to the project plans I'm following, provided by the Wright Brothers Aeroplane Company, run by Engler, the wing coverings for this kite are made out of muslin fabric, which is basically just a cotton woven fabric that has a very open weave. The bias of the fabric's weave must be put at a 45-degree angle to the wing. That means the bolt of fabric isn't wide enough to make the entire wing. Because that's sort of complicated, I've mocked up a plan on my computer. I fold the fabric over so that it's easier to mark out the 45-degree angle. Then I cut along that angle to establish the edge of my wing. Now I take that triangle that I cut off, flip it over to the side of the fabric, and attach it using a flat felled seam. I'm a woodworker, not a sewer, so I do a pretty bad job at this and it takes me a really long time, but I just keep at it and I think I get what are very functional seams. I've marked out the dimensions for the wings directly onto the fabric using a pencil. Now I'm just cutting along that pencil line. I need to affix the wing ribs to the wing spars. I do that by using the same waxed lashing cord I showed in the first video. Here, I'm starting with the tail section. In order to keep the exposed parts of the muslin fabric from unraveling, I just do a simple whiplash around the edges. With the wooden parts of the tail section lashed together, I'm now sewing the wing covering onto the frame, making the fabric as tight as I can. The information on the Wright Brothers Aeroplane Company's webpage indicates that the fabric used on this kite should be shellac. The shellac coating is supposed to prevent air from weaving its way through the open weave of the muslin, and thereby increasing the effect of lift. I want to see how much air movement the shellac stops, so I've set up a simple test here using a basic fan and my anemometer. The airspeed maxes out at about 500 feet per minute, or about 5.5 miles per hour. You'll notice when I put the tail section in front of the anemometer, the airspeed immediately slows down. In fact, it slows all the way down to 0, and if you watch carefully, the fan actually reverses direction and starts recording wind speed from the other direction. If I place the tail section directly adjacent the anemometer, the wind speed drops to 0. So it appears that there isn't really much air leaking through this fabric, but I'm going to go ahead and shellac it anyway. Just to be sure, I go ahead and perform the anemometer test again after the shellac is dried. I've gone ahead and lashed my work pieces together with the waxed lashing cord, cut out my fabric and stretched it and sewed it onto the frame. Now, if you want a good laugh, go ahead and take a look at those seams. They are not fantastic by any measure, but I think it's functional. I'm surprised how tight this turned out to be, especially the more I stitched, the tighter it seemed to get, and then adding the shellac to this also seemed to tighten things up quite a bit. So now that I have some of the basics done, I'm going to move on to the main wings. I sew on fabric pockets to the main wings. These pockets will hold the wing ribs. I suppose it's obvious and goes without saying, but sewing's hard. It takes a lot of practice to get anything that looks good. But I guess that's true of any skill. Here I'm just whiplashing the edges of this opening so that it doesn't unravel. It doesn't look very good. I'm not very good at stitching. It's sort of a horror show. It's uneven. It's irregular, but I think it'll serve the purpose. I've been working on stitching the wings together for quite a while. I've got the rib pockets sewn on, and then I have the reliefs cut out, and I have just a little bit of sewing left to do before I'm ready to assemble. But then after I assemble the main structure of the wings, I'll have some more sewing to do. It'll go together a little bit like this. So the ribs will fit into the rib pockets. And then the wing spars will lay across like this. And I'll have to attach the structure of the struts. So a cotter pin will have to be driven through here and then lashed on there with the cord to hold the struts in place, and that'll have to be on the top and the bottom of the strut. Then once the ribs are tied to the spars, I'll be able to wrap the remaining fabric around, sew this, then shellac everything, then tie the tail section on, then tie the control strings on, and at that point I might be ready to fly it. So a lot of work has already gone into this, but there's a lot of work left to do. The thing that's really keeping me going is the thought of getting this thing airborne. Well, that concludes part 2 of the project build for the Wright Brothers 1899 kite. Please check out my channel for the other videos in this series.